we're going to get started in about 5 minutes. Just waiting for the candidates to arrive. But Cherie is going to go over some rules and kind of the agenda of how this is going to run. But since it's a little more intimate, if we can have everyone move to the middle section and fill up all of these seats, get real cozy and get to know everyone. And then we'll get started in about 5 minutes. So if you want to go to the bathroom really quick, that's fine. But if you can move forward and fill up the empty space here, that would be great.
Okay. Everybody in turn.
So move forward into the empty space.
Yeah, let's fill in a little bit if you can. Fill in.
Okay, I am back. I switched to my tablet.
I put them very close together, so sorry. Yeah, I do. You did walk it in.
And I'll use my phone to take some additional pictures. I changed battery in my phone, but I'm just not streaming with my tablet. I'm actually holding my tablet's monocle on the back of a chair, so I don't even have the... I don't think my tripod can support my tablet. I might have to get a bigger tripod for streaming with my tablet. I may do that eventually.
I feel bad because I'm going to show the share formation.
Well, some people are being goofy in here. That's Dinah Ross song. Dinah Ross and the Supremes.
I see.
Come on, let's do that.
So I do see your pictures, and I did get her to show you. She really is that. Yeah, there you go. She has that voice support and everything. She said she did.
E-harmony.
I call it e-harmony. She had people have called her e-harmony. And I talked to her so fast.
So there will be two candidates who are running for a seat that will be vacated at the end of the term by a legislator who is retiring. And I forget his name right now, but no, Dearden, Representative Dearden is retiring at the end of this term, and two candidates are wanting to fill his seat. My phone is being stupid, so.
Hey, just to kind of kick things off, let's just do a real quick debrief. Some of you were up there lobbying, and so I'm just curious to know, how did you think, how'd it go? Any volunteers? How'd your lobbying experience go, and who'd you talk to?
Let's start off with Joe Fagan.
Joe, Joe, who did you run into downstairs in the cafeteria?
Well, it was a total accident, but I ran into Terry Grandstand.
Oh my gosh. Woo! Well, tell us about it.
Well, I was getting my salad. He was all of a sudden standing right beside me, getting his salad.
Should have knocked his over.
Someone said he should have knocked his over.
So I said, well, I forgot if he was the governor or not. I can't remember. So I said, you know, we need to stop trying to privatize Medicaid. We don't want to do that. It's a bad idea, and people don't like it, and the medical community is not very happy about it either.
Right.
So he says, well, 70% of them are doing it already anyway. He didn't say 70% of what. He said 70% are doing it anyway. I said, well, that's not a reason. That's not a reason.
Right.
He says, well, 70% are doing it anyway. So then his aide kind of grabbed him by the arm and said, it's time to go. It was a great opportunity. He was just there, and I was just there.
Well, I can't think of a better person for Governor Branstad to run into
Ah.
Joe Frank. I think it was Carmen. Yeah. Anybody else?
Hey, Joe. When you said it was time for him to go, it said it's time for him to get out of office.
One said, not time for him to go, time for him to get out of office.
Maybe go back to calling university or something.
Who else did some lobbying? Yes, sir.
Mike Miller, we met with Jerry Kearns
Right.
from Keokuk, and he was, listened to us and talked with us, and I thought he did real well responding, because he did respond to a lot of the things that the people were raising, issues they were raising. He would say, I'm doing what I can, but it's the majority that's running this show.
Right.
But he was very receptive.
And he talked for quite a long time, didn't he?
Yes,
He
he
was
did.
out there for quite a while, yeah. Anybody else? You young folks right there in the middle, you did a little bit of lobbying. Yeah. Go ahead.
I guess I wasn't one of the young people.
No.
Well, you're younger than some of us.
I'm young at heart.
That's what counts.
She said she's young at heart.
You know, talk to Terry too, me and Terry. Terry, that's one of his, we were on a first name basis. And I asked the same question about Medicaid, you know, what are we gonna do? How's that gonna look? He was like, yeah. That's it. We're gonna talk about that years, yeah. I said, so what is it gonna look like? I said, because I need to know. Deshaun's mommy needs to know what privatized Medicaid looked like, because I worked for that company, and I know what they did. Is that what we're gonna bring?
Good for you, yeah.
Smooth.
Good job.
I think she made him cringe.
We talked to Jerry Kearns, he said the same thing, but, I mean, I was kind of just disappointed, when he was like, yeah, it's gonna die. And I'm like, well, what can we do, what can you do? He's like, it's the majority. I didn't really like that answer, I wanted a better answer.
Exactly.
And I felt myself kind of getting too aggressive. I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, yeah.
That's not too aggressive.
That's okay. Yeah.
That's not too aggressive.
You're in the right house. But it's just, we understand you needed to talk to a Republican, you know, just so we can let them know. I mean, I'm pretty sure Kearns he knows the struggle or hears the stories all the time, but we really needed to talk to a Republican, because they don't know, they never lived how we lived, and they just need to know like our end of the story. And I'm pretty sure with a lot of us going up there, in numbers, we can probably cause a lot of damage, and that's who we need to talk to, not the Democrats. but the
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think exactly what it was that talking to people who are already our allies, they're gonna sort of tell us the way it is, not that this is the way they want it to be, but that, you know, kind of give us the reality on it, like, this is dead. Because I can vote for it, and I'm going to vote for it, but I can't convince those people with the elephants to do crap. Or the jacket.
Okay, one more.
Over here.
Yes, sir.
Senator Sauter spent an awful lot of time, it seems like 20, 30 minutes. And the real cool thing is he's a sheriff from Marshall County. He's heads of judiciary. And Iowa per capita has the greatest percentage of Afro-Americans.
That's right.
So Sauter's the guy to go to on judiciary, and that guy is sharp. And I'm really, really impressed that he could spend so much time with us. Rob Hogue had just 5 seconds, but he's a big environmentalist. I know him very well, but I think we made a very big hit with Mike Busolo. It's too bad the governor didn't come.
Yeah. Okay, what I want to do is just kind of set some ground rules here. Is it okay if we start with that, Maddie? Yeah. You know, we have the opportunity, this is a huge opportunity for us to engage 2 candidates face to face. And so we're here to engage them in discussion. And you know, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of energized discussion, but we're also here to build a relationship. So I guess the short of it is we're not going to go all CCI on them. Okay?
Not yet.
Not yet. So, you know, we're just here to kind of warm up to them a little bit. Definitely hold them accountable on issues. You know, we're not going to pull back in terms of what our positions are and what our demands are and what our expectations are. But we want to begin to build a relationship so that we can then go and continue to work with them and push them so that they think more like we do. So that's kind of the objective today. You know, I think that okay, so the 2 candidates that will be coming, one is Nate Bolton, and he actually is a labor attorney. He works in the area of worker compensation and employment law. The other candidate is Pam Dearden Connor. She is the daughter of Dick Dearden, who holds the seat right now. She is an administrative assistant to the Iowa Labor Commissioner. And she's been involved in, you know, traditional kinds of democratic politics for quite a while, probably since she was a teenager. So she's been around this quite a bit. You know, local elections impact all of us. And we are building a candidate pipeline. We're looking for candidates who will hold sort of the progressive torch for us. And so what we need to do is we need to start pushing and supporting candidates who are more like us. I'm just going to sit down here and make myself at home because I'm going to try to go through this because I am going to get into a little bit of detail about some of the unique challenges that we are facing here in District 16 because they're probably very similar to the stuff that you guys are facing in your own districts. So we need candidates that are going to be able to collaborate with some of our other allies so that not just District 16, but senatorial districts across the state can launch progressive initiatives that put people and planet first. And as we know, that is not, that's not happening enough. But we do have allies out there, and so we want to build this coalition. We want to find candidates that think like us. More specifically, District 16 is essentially the east side of Des Moines and Pleasant Hill. You know, we are looking at launching initiatives that can kind of fight back against the infiltration of corporate control in our districts. In other words, in our neighborhoods. Most specifically, we have to start making demands so that we can begin to be included in the prosperity that downtown Des Moines is experiencing. As you have seen, there is a tremendous amount of development in Gateway West and the East Village. And on the other side of that is that our neighborhoods have been ignored. So the east side of Des Moines and Pleasant Hill, I think we have some unique challenges. And today we want to have a discussion with these candidates to flesh out some of their positions and communicate our vision for the future. You know, on the east side, we have more than our fair share of people working for minimum wage. And people are trying to make ends meet. And, you know, our business community on the east side particularly is really essentially the service industry. We have a lot of fast food industry. We have a lot of convenience stores. We have a dollar store. We have Family Dollar. We have one Kmart and one Richmond Gordon. That is it. And consequently, we shop in Ankeny and Altoona a lot. We need to keep our dollars in our neighborhoods and in the city. So, that's one of the challenges. So our neighborhoods are really struggling because there are not livable wages. We are also literally
Sorry about the shaking, I just
circled
turned to hold
by
this steady.
payday lenders. I could literally walk in any direction, north, south, east, and west, within a mile and a quarter, and get to a payday lender. They're on Euclid Avenue. They're on University. They're on East 14th. They're out on Hubble. Those are the major corridors that circle my neighborhood. A lot of my neighbors do not have a car, or they may have a car for a while, and then there is, mechanical breakdown, and now they don't have money to fix the car, or they can't make rent, or they can't make that mortgage payment. So they walk or they bicycle, and the payday lenders know that.
Or they ride the bus.
It just doesn't make any sense for the city of Des Moines to be putting a lot of money into the city core. Excuse me.
You need an
I'm trying
octopus.
to stay on track here. It doesn't make any money. It doesn't make any sense to put a lot of money into the core of the city. It does initially maybe, but to year after year, ignore neighborhoods so that what happens is we have millennials flocking to live downtown right now. That the amount of new housing that goes up. In fact, there are times that I get disoriented because of all the new buildings going up and the old landmarks are gone. So we have millennials flocking to live down there. But what we are seeing happening is when they decide to settle down, maybe they want to raise a family, they leapfrog right over our neighborhoods and they go to the suburbs. And that's what we see on the east side. We have some housing stock that would be perfect first-time home buyers, but we need some investment in it. There's been a few investment programs. NFC, the Neighborhood Finance Corps, is one program that has helped some. But we need amenities on the east side. We have nothing to attract millennials. We have underused space. We have railroad track owned by Union Pacific and ADM, and they have lots of acres, and they're just sitting there, and it is industrial blight. I had a conversation with a city engineer who told me there has been no significant development on the east side for 2 decades. And I also had a professor from the ISU Architectural Design Lab who we were working with in my neighborhood. Now, don't expect change to happen from your city or county government, because change in neighborhoods starts with your neighborhood associations. And so we organized, my son writes about architecture. He lives in Chicago, and he said, Mom, you got to do it yourself. So call the ISU Design Lab. I didn't even know it existed. Called there, talked to a professor, and so she looked at site maps, and she looked at the history of development and said the very same thing. There has been no development on the east side for over 20 years. And you know what she said next? I have a problem with that because that's a matter of social justice. That's what she said. She gets it. So we were trying to come up with a plan to create some kind of amenity, and it was going to be a bicycle pedestrian path to get people off the Hall Avenue corridor from walking through. It's very dangerous. That's where the railroad tracks are. That's the industrial space that's pretty blighted, but there are a lot of semis that go through there. And I picked up a young black man one day. He had an 8-month-old in a stroller, and he had a 3-year-old walking beside him trying to get through there. He needed to get over there so that his sister-in-law could babysit so he could get to work. So, we have all kinds of challenges. We also have this constant overreach of corporate self-interest that's impacting District 16, in our neighborhood in particular. And Union Pacific Railroad is one of the biggest railroads in the country, and they were able to exert their influence and with an army of attorneys, go to our city council, and the city council voted to close down Hall Avenue, which dead ends our neighborhood on both sides of the track. And it was all so that Union Pacific can park box cars for as long as they want to across Hall Avenue. That's a public street. That's our space. And the city council kowtowed to it. And it was all about trickle-down economics. They need to be able to get as much grain out of here. The more production that ADM can have. ADM is one of the biggest global grain refineries. They're on every continent around the world. they also sit in our neighborhood, and they're big polluters. And so we are constantly under pressure of the self-interest of the railroad and the self-interest of Archer Daniel Midland, ADM.
I
So
live streamed
this
that
spring,
city
Hall
council
Avenue
meeting
will be shut down. We will be dead-ended, and it completely
when,
shuts us off
the city
from
council
Highland
voted
Park,
to
which is a neighborhood that we've always been
give
connected to,
parts of that
and it
whole
shuts us
Avenue
off from our
Street
only amenity. The
to
only
the
thing that we can
railroad.
say, really, in our neighborhood and around District 16 is we're close to Grandview University. Now we can't even say that. It's the only real amenity that we have. Nobody cared. Nobody cared on the Des Moines City Council. The only person that stood up for us was a council member at large by the name of Skip Moore, and he stands alone a lot when it comes to these kinds of issues. So again, you know, it's just a reflection that corporations don't want, they just don't want control at the national and state level. They want control right into our neighborhoods. ADM, Archer Daniel Midland, again, another huge corporation, is just a notorious polluter. So we hear that they have submitted a request to the Iowa DNR to be allowed to increase their toxic emissions. So we mobilize people and we throw a fit and they say, okay, we're gonna have a public hearing. So we show up at the North Side Library in our area, and we're told that we can talk into he's there not to answer questions, we can talk into a tape recorder. So we, so we blew that up a little bit too.
Public hearing
so then,
here
there was a
for the
second
back and pipeline that
neighborhood,
was done the
supposedly
same way.
public hearing, who was being organized by a person running for our city council. She is a realtor, and she invited them in, and oh, we're gonna have another public hearing, but she pegged a person to ask all the questions. He happened to be sitting in front of me, and I saw his lame questions, and so I had to stand up and blow that one up too. So there was another free-for-all.
Blowing up means
But you know, my East
she
Siders came right in behind me,
disrupted
and long story short, Chuck Gipp was there,
the
and I
first
said, Chuck,
of-
will you let your people take questions? And he nodded, and he was really not happy. And we had a real public hearing then, and there was
Yeah, to
just give and take back
get
and
it
forth.
to go
We
the
didn't
way
need
a public
somebody running for
hearing
city council to
should be.
moderate that and play out her agenda. So, you know, again, this sort of whole barrage of pressure that we get from corporate self-interest literally has to be fought in our districts and in our neighborhoods. And, you know, if you're not organizing your neighbors, you know, you're missing out on the first step to really moving the ball down the field. You know, my son said, don't count on city planners. They're in a box. You're wasting your time talking to city engineers if you really want to launch an improvement, if you want a bicycle path and a pedestrian path to get people out of that industrial space. He said, you gotta launch it yourself. And it's the truth. So again, grassroots organizing is what it's all about, and it starts, you know, right in your neighborhood. You know, we had an opportunity to talk to Iowa DNR about this, pollution at ADM when they asked to increase their emissions. We talked to Polk County Air Quality, they were at the public hearings, and there was a state toxicologist there. And they're not working for us, folks. They're under tremendous pressure. They are not working for us, and you just have to call them out and say, you know what? You're in a tough position, but you gotta make a choice. And if you think for 1 minute that I'm gonna sit here and support this, while my neighborhood's being polluted, you're wrong, I'm sorry. But you know, you're gonna see me some more. So we need candidates who are willing to stand up to our city, our county, and our state officials, and who won't allow business as usual, because business as usual is that ADM is allowed to self-report their emissions. They're allowed to self-report their readings and their data. And we all
In other words, they could
know,
lie.
you know, what that was like when Volkswagen was allowed to do that. And so, you know, we called them out and said, you know what, I'm sorry, but this self-reporting, and, you know, I told them, from my personal experience, self-reporting, when you allow the Iowa DNR to let industry self-report, it's never good. That's why we have polluted waterways. So you can connect dots for people too. You know, I talked to you about the Hall Avenue corridor that the city council has voted to shut down in our neighborhood, and it's really a major artery. And the city of Des Moines talks about, oh, we're going to be a walkable city. You know, we want millennials to move here, we want amenities, we want our neighborhoods to be walking friendly, and we want connectedness. We want our neighborhoods to be connected, and then they turn around and do this. So, you know, they have had these planning sessions. One was called the Tomorrow Plan, and another one was called Capital Crossroads. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's regional.
I
It
live
includes
streamed
the
one
greater Des Moines metropolitan area, and they had
Tomorrow
public
Plan.
hearings. And they said, oh, here's our big whiteboard, and we want you to list, you know, some of your ideas about how that we can make the metro area, you know, more vibrant, and we want to attract more people. And we want it to be a good environmentally friendly community, and we want economic growth. And so at these public hearings, I would raise my hand and I would say, well, I think we need to address industrial blight, because in my neighborhood, you know, we have this huge area by the tracks and by ADM, and it's underused space, but it has a lot of retail and commercial potential. So they put it up there, industrial space. And then I'd go to the next meeting, and it would never be on the list. And I'd raise my hand again, and I'd say, you know, I'm representing the east side of Des Moines, we have industrial blight, but that isn't the only part of the city that has underused space and industrial blight. And they put it back on again, and quite frankly, it just never ended up on the list. So, you know, again, their priorities were set, they kind of had an agenda, and it was pretty obvious. So again, you just have to get in there and you have to see what's going on, and then you have to kind of take on the powers that be over that. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the Tomorrow Plan, and you know, there's articles in the newspaper about it every once in a while, and they'll talk about, this is our regional plan for prosperity. And really, it's a sellout to big business. Overall, it's really a sellout. There are 70 CCI action members on the east side in District 16. So we have a power base that we can work from. And we need to stand in solidarity, and we need to reclaim the dignity of District 16, and we need to reclaim the dignity of our neighborhoods. So there's an old saying on the east side, Lee Township against the world, and that's the fighting spirit that the east side has the ability to show. And believe you me, when I bring that up, city leaders hate that. Oh, don't cause division, don't say that. You know, it's like, you know, let's just be real diplomatic and let's not talk about all of these, you know, glaring issues. So, you know, these are things that I'm sure that if you think about your own communities, you can also relate to some of our pressure from corporate self-interest. Jess is bringing Pam Dearden Connor in here right now. Our first candidate, you can come right on up here. And we've got a seat right for you.
She is the daughter of Dick Dearden. He's retiring and she wants to take his place.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Pam, for coming and speaking with us. We really value the opportunity to have a direct conversation with you, and we're here to, you know, build a relationship and hopefully continue to work together on some really important issues that we've really been digging in on. And so, you know, what we really have here are basically sort of 5 areas: Fight for 15, the clean water issue here in the state of Iowa, getting big money out of politics, the Bakken pipeline, and racial injustice. So our panelists here, 3 out of the 4 of them are actually from District 16. So I think that's important to know. First of all, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running and what your plan is to win?
Okay. Well, I'm sure all of you know my father is Senator Dick Dearden, and he's not running again. So a lot of people approached me about running, and I thought about it, and I just felt like I wanted to carry on his excellent public service. And so that's why I got in it. I've been involved in public service for over 35 years. I've worked for Polk County and for the state, and right now I'm the assistant to the Michael Marr, the Iowa Labor Commissioner, who's a big supporter of a lot of the issues that you guys have. We actually deal with those in our office a lot, so. As a Polk County employee, I was a member of ASME for over 16 years and served on their executive board. I've been a delegate to numerous ASME conventions, Iowa Federation of Labor conventions, Democrat, at all levels, and I was a national delegate in 1980 for President Carter. So I was the youngest delegate that year in 1980, so, yeah, and Jan Gorderman, knows, she's been at those conventions with me. I've grown up in politics. Yeah. My parents have been involved in the labor movement and the Iowa Democratic and Polk County Party. And at a young age, they taught my brother and I that we need to fight for workers, and that was one way to do it, to be involved in labor and to be involved in your community and to be involved in the Democratic Party. So I'm a graduate of East High School. I've lived in the district my whole life. Yeah, East High Charlotte. I've lived in the district my whole life, and so, I've as a Democrat, I've worked, knocked on doors, made phone calls, and when you do that, you really get to know the people of the district, and what their needs are. And people ask me why I'm running because I believe in the community. I believe in neighborhoods should be safe. We need to raise the minimum wage. I believe that the elderly should be able to stay in their homes and not have to go to nursing homes. I think privatizing Medicaid is a very bad idea. And I believe that we need to really take a look at education. A study just came out that we went from 40th to 35th of what we spend per pupil on students. And so that really, what it affects is it increases class sizes and it decreases the courses that are offered to students, which is not good. I think that the legislature should pass the constitutional amendment that was passed in 2010 for natural resources. So I think that's a big issue. I don't understand it passed such a wide margin, why, bipartisan obviously, so I don't know why they're not funding it. So, yeah, that's a few reasons why I'm running. Thank you.
I'm gonna just kind of explain the basic format, kind of how we're gonna run this. Each CCI action member will share a personal statement on their issue and then ask you a question related to that issue. So you'll have about 2.5 minutes to respond. Afterwards, I may or may not follow up with another question. Miss Sharon down here has her 30-second warning paddle, just to kind of keep us on track here. So we're going to start out with the Fight for 15 issue with Brenda Brink.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm the black sheep, and I'm not from your district, but I was kind of substituting in. And as you know, there are a lot of people in our communities that are barely scraping by. The income inequality is just devastating our middle class and working class. And so the person that would have done these questions had to work, can't turn anything down, and just at kind of the whim of their employer with a lot of pressure. They're trying to make their ends meet. We know that the current minimum wage is a poverty wage. And we know that when those of us like myself, I even went so far as to make a costume that said, we need to supersize our wages, forget the fries. So we were out on the streets. And you wouldn't believe the amount of honking that we got saying, we're behind you. So CCI Action Fund is really saying it's time to change this. It's been over 7 years. Iowa used to be a leader with the minimum wage, and it's been over 7 years. So that's really why we're really working on it. It's just overdue. There's in a lot of cities that have increased. In fact, Johnson County now has increased the minimum wage. So it's coming, whether it's citywide, countywide, or hopefully statewide. But we know that 48% of Iowans have a poverty wage of $7.25 an hour. So when we talk about 48%, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of Iowans. So that's what we're trying to support, is those fast food workers that really need to be able to feed their families and have a future.
Their net pay
at this
even
point they don't.
lower.
So here's a question, it's the first question. Do you support a living wage? And what we mean by living wage is $15 per hour. And the second question is, what are you going to do to ensure all workers receive better protections under Iowa's law?
I definitely believe that $15 an hour should be what it is, but I also realistically believe with the legislature we have now and the governor that won't happen. I mean, last year the state senate had a bill that passed for $8.75 an hour, and it still didn't come out of committee or out of the Senate into the House. So I am pretty sure there's another bill that'll come up this year, and hopefully it'll be $15 an hour, but I don't think it will be. And you know, I support what Senator Dotzler did last year of at least starting at $8.75 if we can't get 15 or higher. And I believe that if we can't get it through the state, we need to go to the counties, you know, and ask each county. I know Polk County's been approached about it. I don't know if they're gonna take it up, but I would totally suggest you contacting your supervisors too.
That'd
you
be
know,
County
because
Board of
at least
Supervisors.
in Polk County, you know, I would say they'd be more favorable to it. You know, the counties obviously with the Democrats a majority, they're gonna have to take a look at this, especially it seems like it's working so far in Johnson County. I really haven't heard it, you know, much about it. So, like I said, I definitely just support the $15 minimum wage. I just don't think it's gonna happen, at least in this legislative session. So.
I guess I'd like to lead up on this with maybe another way of talking about it. Basically, I think that what people in this room would like to see you do is to stand up for $15 an hour. It has to start somewhere. Basically, when that bill for $8.25 was put on the floor, I mean, it was no movement whatsoever. I mean, it's really a slap in the face of everyday people who know that it was meaningless. It would not have helped anybody. You know, rather than being sort of an establishment Democrat, you know, we're looking for candidates who are willing to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to compromise, because that was really a very weak compromise. And, you know, it's not fooling anybody in the public sector when that sort of symbolic nudge in the direction doesn't really help working families. So would you be willing to stand up and step apart from establishment Democrats and say, no, I'm not going to support this. It has to be $15 an hour because we know that's what people need to live on.
Well, I understand that, and I would support $15 an hour, but I also feel like you have to have compromise, and there were Democrats that would not compromise on that, so it would be either all or nothing. And I don't think that really helps these families. You know, I know $8.75 isn't a lot, but it's still going to be more than what the minimum wage is now, and it'll help them. You know, I believe you have to compromise, and I totally would be for $15 an hour, but then obviously you have to look at where are we going to go from there, and if you can't compromise, then it won't happen.
Okay, the next question is clean water.
What about the second question?
Oh.
So what
Sorry.
are you going to do to ensure all workers receive better protections under Iowa's laws?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would obviously still, you know, you have to, once again, compromise. I mean, I believe in unions. I believe that that's the biggest way, but I know a lot of companies don't have unions, and I believe that we need tougher laws to make sure that just like wage theft or there's a lot of different things. I work for the Division of Labor, so I see that a lot, and I see we have to stick up. We have to stand up for these people and make sure that they are getting their wages, they're getting their protection, and we need to hire more people to work in these offices. We really need two wage investigators is just not enough for the state of Iowa, and one child labor. It doesn't work, you know. And we have very competent people doing it, but it's not working. So yeah, understaffed totally.
Oh, excuse me. Let's just maybe have some time for that later. The next question is the clean water issue, and I'm going to just kind of kick this off. Pam, I'm one of 500,000 ratepayers here in Des Moines, and I find it incredibly unfair that my rates are gonna continue to go up to clean up somebody else's mess upstream. We have closed beaches across the state. We have a record number of polluted waterways. That number continues to climb. Water utility companies are violating nitrate levels because they just don't have the facility to really do the filtering. Voluntary compliance has been just a colossal failure in terms of trying to control animal feedlots and the pollution that they contribute. And also voluntary compliance just in terms of farmers are deciding whether or not they want to use best practices. And so, you know, corporate ag needs to pay, and we need a candidate that will put people's lives and our planets first before corporate polluters. So my question to you is, do you support the Des Moines Water Works lawsuit?
Yes, I do support it. I believe that they've been given enough chances to
There's
just
a
voluntarily.
suit against
like you said,
the
try it,
Iowa
and they're not
counties that
doing
have the
so
worst
I do support,
nitrate pollution,
the water
and
works.
then that comes
And I think
down
they'll still
into
really
the
got
Des Moines and
unfair
Raccoon
shake of
rivers,
how people are attacking
which is
them
where Des Moines
personally, so.
and the surrounding suburbs get their water.
I guess maybe a follow-up question would be, where do you stand over the controversy of mandatory compliance versus voluntary compliance? Is there something that, you know, we can, that you can kind of put out there, you know, to speak for your position on that?
Well, I think voluntary compliance hasn't worked so far, and I think that we need to, I believe, I'm not real, I have a lot of background in this, but I believe that there are some, that they need to enforce things a lot better and maybe take a look at it and see how many, I mean, I don't even know if it's a matter of people going out and checking it just like us, and we just, you know, I don't know if there's enforcement officers, but I do think that it needs to be enforced a lot more. Sorry.
So
Yeah.
you would be in favor of tougher enforcement, maybe tougher fines and penalties against polluters?
Yes, I mean, I believe that, you know, my approach is, and it is where I work, that you talk to these people, you give them a chance, and if they're not gonna clean it up, you're gonna have to fine them. That's the only way they're gonna do it and enforce it. So, you know, and obviously they've been given chances, so.
You're probably also aware that the governor has proposed as a way to clean up our waterways is to take money out of the education budget and put it towards water cleanup. What's your position on that?
I don't agree with it.
Enough said. Okay, next topic would be money, getting money out of politics. Jane Quarterman.
Good to see you, Pam.
Good to see you.
Well, this year marks the second presidential cycle after Citizens United, that case in 2010 where the Supreme Court said that corporations are people and money is speech.
And then 2 years ago,
So
the
just when
McCutcheon
we were getting
decision
used to
followed
that, they
on
came
that.
up with another decision, the McCloskey decision, that said we're going to throw away the limits for individual contributions as well. So we're now in this cycle of presidential elections where corporations can give whatever they want, individuals can give whatever they want. And that, of course, affects us. It really taps down the right that we have to be citizens in our communities. Just to throw out a figure here, it was, they had to give a FEC report February 6th. And
That's
176 million
Federal
had
Election
gone in
Commission.
advertising so far. And that's up from 45 million 4 years ago. So big problem. So that's one of the issues that we want to talk about. We'd like to amend the Constitution. And we're wondering, you know, we want to make it clear that corporations are not people. We want to make it clear that money is not speech. So the first question is, would you support a resolution to change the Constitution? And by that I mean, you know, if the Senate approved it, the House approved it, it would go to Congress and start the process to get the Constitution amended with these big changes that need to happen. That's already happened in the city of Des Moines, the city of Windsor Heights, and Altoona, just in our area. So the first question is, would you support amending the Constitution, and would you be proactive in seeing that we get the Constitution amended?
Yes, well, yeah, yes, I would. I would definitely, I'm definitely opposed to that, so.
Okay.
Opposed to Citizens United, I'm in favor of amending the Constitution.
Okay, great. Well, we've got a second question, and that's at the state level. There's House File 27 for voice legislation, voter-owned Iowa clean elections. And Bruce Hunter happens to be the lead on that right now. And we know that a lot of other legislators support it, but basically it would provide some public funding for a candidate who would agree to not take PAC money and not take contributions over $100. So we've got the same question there, would you support it? And from a personal point of view, and we know we want to talk about a personal point of view, it just seems like this money affects us in every area. It affects the food we eat and the air we breathe and water and everything else. And frankly, we would rather talk to candidates about issues than hearing them always say, well, Jan, can you make a contribution? And and I guess you probably feel the same, that you'd like to talk about issues rather than being on the phone all the time asking for contributions.
Right. Yes, I do know about Bruce Hunter's, and I agree with it. I believe it's in Maine that they've done this, and I don't quote me because I could be, but my understanding is I think it's in Maine that they have public funding, and then if you say you go over that by $50,000, then they will match that money with you. You know, so you're never, so if both candidates aren't on board with it, they would help with public funding, but and I don't know how well that's working for them. But I do think that there needs to be campaign reform. I mean, you shouldn't have to, you know, you should be able to just ask your friends and neighbors for money, but not have to, you know, compete against all these PACs and certain groups of people, and then obviously you're beholden. Well, you're not, but you know, the perception is that you're beholden to this certain group of people, you know, and I mean, I've gotten money from PACs, I've gotten money from Ask Me 18, well, I haven't, they've endorsed me, and the Teamsters have endorsed me, and the painters, so, you know, I'm not saying that I'm not gonna take PAC money, but I'm saying that it would be a lot.
That have endorsed her candidacy.
Field, and more people, I believe, would be able to get involved. A lot of people can't raise the money, they don't know who to talk to. I've grown up in this my whole life, so I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of friends in the party that know me, and so they're going to support me, but a lot of people don't, and your average person might not be able to run or be intimidated by running because they wouldn't know, you know, how to raise those funds. So I think if it's done with public financing, everybody has an even field, and it would be a lot fairer for everyone. And I don't believe you'd be beholden to PACs or anything else that people have that perception. That's yours, right?
You know, just as kind of a follow-up to that, in my neighborhood, we had a local city council election in which one of the candidates had an affiliation with the National Realtors Association. And they came in and they dumped $56,000 into her campaign. And I think she had already raised $30,000. And so my question, and you kind of touched on it, is, you know, are you willing to stand up and say enough is enough? Because that money literally hijacks local elections right out of our hands, and it's really easy to run over the voices of my neighbors when a candidate can put together an $80,000 campaign against an ordinary guy, an ordinary citizen. So, you know, can you kind of elaborate, you know, what you're willing to do to stand up to this? Would you be willing to stand up and ask a candidate to reject PAC money coming from private industry like that because of the damage that it does to a local election?
I really don't want to get into the city council race and what happened. I've heard more than one story about that, and I know that was kind of an ugly race, and it was too bad that it turned into that on both sides. So, you know, I'm not willing to say I wouldn't take PAC money because I know that my opponent will and already has. So I don't, you know, to be able to run, I'm going to have to take PAC money. There's no doubt about it. And, you know, if, you know, I don't really want it. The city council race, my understanding was it was a national group that was all given from people from Iowa. And there's a lot of PACs. Now, I'm not here to argue about that. I really don't care about the city council race. I mean, I did, but, you know, I mean, I, you know, wasn't out there on the forefront of it. But I do believe that, like I said before, if it's, you know, if everybody's on the same playing field, yes. But, you know, people can say they're not going to take PAC money, and then they do anyway, so.
The next issue will be the Bakken Pipeline and Ross Gruters. Thanks,
Hi, as Cherie said, my name is Ross Gruters. I'm in your district, and I'm a union locomotive engineer with the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. We're also part of Teamsters. And my economic self-interests are tied to fossil fuel extraction. But at the same time, I have a daughter, and I'm concerned for her future in a planet that is increasingly becoming more and more chaotic when it comes to the climate. And I guess I'm wondering to myself what the best course of action is. And to me, I've got to set aside some economic self-interests and have a different vision for the future so that it's there for my daughter and that it's there for all of our children. And it sounds cliche, but it's true. We are what we leave to our children. And as such, I oppose fossil fuel extraction. At the same time, knowing that I'm an industrial worker tied to fossil fuels, I know that we need some kind of economic transition, and I know that we need a better way for Iowa. And to me, it's pretty clear, based on what we've already started to accomplish here in Iowa with wind energy, that wind and solar energy can be produced and locally controlled in state, and that we can turn our backs on fossil fuels and stop and leave them in the ground so that we're not continuing this course of action. And so my question for you is, what will you do to support continuing to invest in wind and solar energy that's locally controlled here in the state? And will you support groups like CCI that are working to transition away from fossil fuels? How will you support workers and continue those efforts?
So, like, is your question on my supporting the Bakken pipeline or not?
Not right now, no. I mean,
Okay.
my question is more about the reality of needing to transition away from fossil fuels and support renewable energy, and how we're going to do that at the state level, and how you're going to help support us to create that vision so that we have economic opportunities for workers in that. I mean, fossil fuels directly are in opposition to renewable energy. We can't do both. One takes away from the other. So we need to leave one in the ground and support the other. And what will you do to do that, or do you support that?
I mean, honestly, I don't know a lot about it. I mean, I know some about it. I totally, obviously, wind energy became probably the model state for it, you know, in renewable energy. You know, with the Bakken pipeline, I just have to say that, I mean, I just feel it's a safer alternative than by train or rail. I know, I think it was in Canada, there was a terrible accident that was 45 people were killed, and I understand that you guys are not on the same page as this, and we're not always gonna agree on everything. So, I understand that, I fully know that coming here, so I know you're all against it, but I mean, I have to be honest, and that's how I feel about it, and I think it needs to be regulated, and those regulations need to be carried through, that they make sure that, you know, that the way they build it, and, you know, it'll be built with, good union workers that know, you know, that they're gonna have the best interest of everybody, not just a corporation bringing in people from another state and, you know,
Which Dakota Access and Energy Transfer Partners want to do.
So if I can follow up more specifically to the pipeline and the alternative between rail and pipeline. As a railroad worker, I know that oil is not going to stop running through this state by train just because there's a pipeline. In fact, it's going to increase the amount of oil that's being shipped through our communities. It's going to go by train and by pipeline. And this is really sort of a false choice to me. We can have jobs that are more productive and stay in state through renewable energy. When we know the pipeline is very limited in the scope of the jobs it creates. So I've asked legislators, will you legislate to stop train traffic through the state if train traffic by oil is so dangerous? And again, I'm willing to set aside my economic self-interest for what's best for our communities. The answer is pretty obvious. They're not going to do that. And I don't know that you would do that either. But just know that rank and file workers are very split on this issue. I'm sure you know, being an AFSCME member and being at AFL-CIO events, there are unionized workers that are not in support of this pipeline, and it really does pit worker against worker, and it pits people in our communities against labor. And it's really a false choice that I think a Republican leadership uses to divide us. And that we need to start getting on the same page. So I guess I would follow it up and say, what would you do to make sure that we can bridge this gap between labor and environment and the people in our communities?
Well, as I said, I mean, I don't know how you can bridge it. I mean, I know people are gonna be on both sides of it, and you're right, labor isn't all 100% on it. I know, the building and trades, just because you're a member like you are does not mean you support everything that they do. But I mean, I just think that people need to understand that, I don't know, I just feel like hopefully that if we do it that way, there won't be as much oil going through, and I don't know how you bridge the gap between that, you know, I mean, have meetings with them, I don't know, you know, we have to make sure that it's all regulated right, and, but I think people have their opinion on both sides, and I don't think they're gonna change their mind about it, about the pipeline anyway.
Thank you. The last question regarding racial justice will be submitted by Lori.
Thank you. What's your deal?
Answering calls or anything. My name is Lori Jones. I'm not in your district, but I'm on the south side, but this is an issue that is, you know, across the whole state. I'm a CCI Action member. In October 2015, you may have seen this or not, but there was a list published in the Des Moines Register of the worst cities for Black Americans, which is not really a positive recruiting tool for bringing diverse individuals to our city, and makes Des Moines and Iowa look like it's a bad place for people of color to reside. The list had the top 10 with Illinois being the number 1, and the list rounded out the top 10 with Des Moines being number 9. So usually you want to be high on a list, but this is a list you'd rather not be in the top of. At CCI, we've gotten phone calls and people have come into our office discussing their stories about being racially profiled and other issues that they've encountered with those individuals that are supposed to protect us, and that's the Des Moines Police Department. My first question to you is, do you support legislation to make racial profiling illegal? And what else would you do to make sure all people of color are treated fairly by the police?
Okay, so yes, I would support legislation. And honestly, I've read, you know, most things what I've read, you know, read on articles in the paper, and it is terrible that we are ranked that. Like, you know, it's not, you know, people think our city is great, and it is, but I do believe there's a lot of racial profiling going on, and it's not right. And I honestly don't know the answers, and I know my dad spoke about this at a forum that we were at, and talked to Representative Akeo about it. We spoke with Akeo, and you know, I know the Des Moines Police Chief Wingert had put out a suggestion or an idea that maybe that it could be included on your driver's license, and it would be on a magnetic strip of your driver's license. So it isn't up to the police to decide what race you are, you know, and they don't have to ask you that. You don't have, you know, people don't have to feel uncomfortable being asked, well, what is your race? And on the magnetic strip, obviously, it wouldn't be shown if you have to show your driver's license that you wrote a check or something like that. I think that's
My race
a
is
good
human.
idea, but like I said, I know there's probably pros and cons to all of that, you know, but at least it'd be one way, and I would feel like I think that we need to meet with the police departments. I think they had a meeting in December. Wasn't there a forum, I believe, in December?
Yes,
and so at least we're talking about it, and you know,
Unfortunately, I did not hear about that, otherwise I could have went there to cover it.
And not just Des Moines, all over, exactly, all over the country. And, people can say, well, there's worse places than Des Moines, but that doesn't make it right. We want it what's right for every citizen of Iowa and of Des Moines. And so that's just one idea that, like I said, I don't know what your views are on that. On first, you first sounds like a good idea, but maybe there are other reasons why that wouldn't be a good idea. But this one, I just don't think that any person should have to be approached by the police and they're already nervous whether you did anything or not. All of us are. You get a stop for a ticket, you're like, and so then saying, well, what is your race? Well, why do you want to know my race? You know what I mean? And they're not going to believe the police officer when they say, well, it's really, so we can keep track of how we're doing this. That people are going to, I feel you'd be intimidated and not believe that. So, but that, like I said, I don't know if that's a good idea. I feel like it's a good idea, but, I'd be willing to listen to you guys and, in an alternative or whatever, I'm not saying that sorry, she's holding up the stop sign, so, sorry, I'm like looking at sorry. I apologize.
I don't actually know if putting race on a license plate, either through a magnetic strip, is a solution to a problem, because I don't know, I've been stopped before and nobody's asked me my race. And it's pretty obvious sometimes that the people that are being stopped are probably, especially in certain neighborhoods in Des Moines, and probably some of that flows over onto the east side. I'm not an east sider, but I know a lot of people that live there, and some races are evident. So I don't know how that would really help.
But because then the police have to be honest about what your race is. You know what I mean? Because they have to be, they don't get to say they don't get to, I don't even know how they keep track of it, but they don't get to do it themselves.
They don't keep track.
Well, and if they did, if it was them just asking you, I think this would be a fair.
I have never
way
seen
of
race
doing it, because
indicated on
it would be
the
swiped and it would go into your
tickets that I
record,
have
and that
received
way,
for my
I feel like maybe
trespasses.
that would be a better way of tracking if we are, stopping minorities
Not
or,
even
whoever
by
we're
Des Moines
stopping.
police or
That's
the
what I feel. I know
suburban
that
police that I have been arrested
I'm not
by,
saying they
so
wouldn't know
I
what
have not
race
seen that.
I am or you are, but they could put down whatever they wanted. And I'm not saying the police are doing that. Like, I'm not saying they are, but there's good police and bad police, just like everything. And so that's the way I feel like it might be a fair way of doing it, because they don't get that choice. They swipe it, and then your race would, be already in there. Yeah, and it would be when you get your driver's license, so.
Pam, we're going to give you an opportunity just for last comments. If you'd like to just close out with some comments and.
Sure. Well, I just want to thank everyone for inviting me here, and like I followed CCI over the years. Obviously being involved in politics, I know a lot of people involved in CCI, and I really appreciate your support. I know I don't agree with you 100%, but I'll always be honest and tell you how, tell you the truth, whether it's what you want, and I'll always be willing to listen, and I'm not saying that, obviously when you hear other sides of things, and, I'll always sit down and listen to people, and, like I said, I think compromise is a big thing, and I just believe that my parents raised my brothers and I with really good values, and I believe that my father has been an excellent state senator. Obviously I'm biased because it's my father, but he's always cared about the east side of Des Moines and the whole district and Iowa, and put that first, and obviously I've been around that, and I believe in him, and I believe that we're two separate people, but I would do a good job as a senator. So.
Thank you very much. Panelists, would you like to come back up?
Thanks for
I
coming.
feel alone. Lori and I are here.
Up in front.
Standing alone.
The questioners will take the stage again, because Durden's opposition will be coming in.
Okay. chair right here for you, Nate.
Excellent.
This is
I'd like to welcome today Mr. Nate Bolton, also running in the primary coming up in June. Nate, I gave you a little bit of background information on him, but I'm going to let him kind of introduce himself and give you a little more detailed profile.
All right, well, thank you so much for the invitation and putting on this forum. It's obviously very, very important that we hear from our candidates on what you guys call tough questions and some tough issues. And that's part of this process, and I'm thrilled to be here and a part of it. My name is Nate Bolton. I'm running for the Iowa Senate in District 16, which includes the east side of Des Moines and the city of Pleasant Hill as well. For those of you who don't know me, my day job is I'm a workers' rights attorney. I've spent the last decade standing up to some of the most wealthy and powerful interests in our state on behalf of injured workers in workers' compensation, labor unions in labor law, people wrongfully terminated through their skin color, age, ethnicity, victims of sexual harassment in the workplace. I do these things because it's important to me that we stand up for those who need an advocate. When I went to law school, there was very little doubt what side of the fence I was going to be on in terms of what job I was going to take. My father was a union worker in a tire plant. My grandfather was a chief union steward in a packing house in southeast Iowa for over 20 years. So when I went to work as an attorney, the first thing I was going to do was help out working people. And that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years. We need to do more of that in our state government. We need to do more to advocate for the betterment of people who need help in our system. We have too many people being left behind. And some of the things that we've done in my practice have been about giving that more powerful voice to people who need it. One thing that we've done in more recent years is we've stood up to Terry Branstad 3 separate times. 3 separate times when he's acted unconstitutionally to lash out against some of the most vulnerable people in our society. The first time he used an unconstitutional veto, he vetoed funding for underemployed and unemployed Iowans who needed help in a down economy. That's what the governor wanted to do. We stood up to him on behalf of public sector labor unions and a group of state legislators to say no. You can't have it that way. You can't keep funding, shut down the thing funding was for. And guess what? We had 7 Supreme Court justices who agreed with us in a unanimous decision to take back that issue and push back on the governor and show him the limits of his executive authorities. We've got to do more to challenge Terry Branstad in this state. And that's exactly it. People act like we're scared of him, and he knows it. He thinks he's invincible right now. Why does he think he's...
Guy says I wouldn't mind slapping, or we will give him a political
slap. We're going to slap him with some public policy. We're going to take back... We're going to take back the values debate in this state. Too often we surrender our values. This is a governor who feels comfortable vetoing education funding outright. On a compromise bill last year, he vetoed education funding outright, replaced it with nothing, called no special session to change where the money came from. He just got rid of it. That's an Iowa value. We pride ourselves on being an education state. We are a leader in education. That's at least what we tell people across the nation. We put it on the back of our quarter to signify that's our thing in Iowa. We are education leaders. We used to be.
We used to be.
Yep.
Vice President Biden often says, don't tell me what you value, show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value.
There you go.
We don't value education in this state. We've got to change that. We've got to get the public back on our side. We don't value workers in this state. We give them a low wage. When we talk about job growth, and Governor Branstad talks about how he's going to create jobs all the time, right? What jobs has he created? Low wage, low skill jobs, exploiting workforces. I've gone to the legislature year in and year out advocating for better workers' rights protections, giving workers choice of doctor when they're injured and on-the-job injuries, standing up for employee misclassification when employers try to cut corners and keep off-the-books employees classified as independent contractors so they don't have to pay them any work comp benefits, they don't have to pay them unemployment insurance when they're gone. And when I push back on those issues, I'm told what you're doing is bad for business. Well, guess what? What I'm doing when I push for those reforms, and what I will do as a state senator, is I'll keep doing things that are bad for bad businesses and get good businesses rewarded for their fair labor practices. Stand up for immigrant workers and bring them off the shadow economy and into our Iowa economy. Those are the things we need to do. We need to clean up our air and water. Again, Iowa values. We can do great things. And this seat, Senate District 16, is a place where we can do those great things. So I ask you to join me and build that effort. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to just talk a little bit about, first of all, we have about 70 Iowa CCI Action Fund members in this district alone. So, you know, there's a base of support here that can be built upon. And so we're here today to talk about some of the issues that are near and dear to our hearts and to lift up the voices of everyday people that are in our audience and that are being impacted by some of these issues. I want to just talk a little bit about basically the issue areas are Fight for 15, the clean water issue, money in politics, the Bakken pipeline, and racial justice. And the format we're going to use is each CCI member will share a personal statement on their issue and then ask you a question related to that issue. And then you'll have 2.5 minutes to respond. And afterwards, I may or may not follow up with a question. But Miss Sharon down there has this paddle, as you've already seen. So she's our timekeeper. So anyway, just to start things off, we're going to start with the issue of the Fight for 15 campaign with Brenda Brink.
Okay, great. I'm Brenda Brink. I'm from Huxley, Iowa, and we're glad to have you here. The Iowa CCI Action Fund has been very active with the Fight for 15. We know that the pervasive holding down of people in their hopes and dreams for their whole families is because there's such income inequality in our nation. So when we look at how to bring people up, how to give them opportunities, it has to be based on improving in minimum wage. So the Fight for 15 is where we're at. There are people who have gone on strike for the first time, and we have supported them. The fast food strike, January 28th, we were there. Dozens of cities have actually gone ahead and increased to 15. Johnson County is now at 15. And you probably already know these facts and figures, but 48% of Iowans are below the minimum wage. So, or make the minimum wage, I should say. What does 48% mean? It's hundreds of thousands of people. So this is one reason why we have 1 in 4 children in Iowa, the breadbasket, you might say, in poverty. So it's not right. We want to change. So do you support a living wage of $15 per hour? And then second of all, what are you going to do to ensure all workers receive better protections under Iowa's law?
Yes. So here's the reality of the living wage issue. Number one, yes, I support the Fight for 15, but more importantly, I support the other side of that equation of the living wage. What we do too often is we play catch up on wages and the minimum wage issue. We wait for a decade or a decade and a half or 2 decades. So now we have to double the minimum wage to make it almost what it was before we raised it the last time, which was too little back then, right? So that's what we've got to do is we have to start being proactive on these things and start saying, for example, federal government, Congress gets a wage raise anytime that they see inflation happening. Well, why does the minimum wage worker not have that same value? So that's a very important thing, and I'll do everything I can to build a coalition to have real progress on a living wage in our state. In terms of other issues, in terms of workers' rights, I mean, that's my whole career has been about that. And I've gone to the legislature on things like a prevailing wage to make sure our skilled and productive Iowa workers in the building trades are able to earn a living wage for their trade and their craft and not have to compete against low bidders that cut costs and cut corners and make a lot of the buildings we use and the highway systems that we use less safe because of it, because of those corners that have been cut. In terms of workers' rights and workers' compensation, employee choice of doctor is something that I deal with every day. My phone rings because people are dissatisfied with the medical care that they're being forced into by their employer. You want to talk to someone who is really victimized by employer choice of doctor in this state? Somebody with a mental injury that has to treat with a psychiatrist that they don't trust because the company chose them. You have companies out there that give medical care with names like Company Medicine PC, Employment Cost Solutions. Imagine being an injured worker and going into employment cost solutions for your physical therapy. It's sick, it's wrong, it's got to be replaced. Labor law issues across the board. We've got to do more to make it easier to join a labor union, in particular with public sector bargaining. One of the bills that I worked on with my law partner, Mark Hedberg, was expanding the scope of public sector bargaining. It was vetoed. It was vetoed in a time where we had a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic governor. We've got to lead on these issues when we have the opportunity to do it, and I'm prepared to do that.
Yeah, Nate, just maybe a follow-up on that. You know, the Senate approved a bill raising the minimum wage to $8.75, and that didn't fool anybody in the public sector. I mean, it was a zero, really. Would you be willing to stand up, even if you're standing alone, and say, no, I'm going to stand for $15 an hour, period, and I'm not going to go along with establishment Democrats out there who push this kind of a bill that is really insulting to us out in the public sector?
Yeah, I think one of the key things we have to do is we have to have unity on this issue. And that's part of the reason why I think it's so important to have a progressive action leader representing this district. This is a district which you have a 2-to-1 Democrats to Republicans registration advantage. This is a district that should be more than solid votes on these issues, but really leading the debate and shaping that debate. And being that caucus leader in the Democratic Party to say, no, this is not a winning proposal, this is a sham. This is we fixed minimum wage, we get to ignore it for 10 more years. So yeah, we deserve that.
Thank you. Okay, this is my question. You know, clean water has been a huge issue for us. And I, along with you and about a lot of people in this room, we're all ratepayers. And so my rates are going up. And it just seems absolutely unfair that we are being asked to pay for polluters that are polluting our water and what's coming downstream. You know, we have closed beaches across the state, which is really an embarrassment. Record number of polluted waterways, I think we're well over 725. Water utility companies are violating really the acceptable nitrate levels because they just don't have a sophisticated nitrate filtering system like we do in Des Moines. Voluntary compliance has been an absolute joke and a colossal failure. And so corporate ag needs to pay, and we need a candidate that will put people's lives and put our planet first before corporate polluters. So my question is, do you support the Des Moines Water Works lawsuit?
Well, I wish it wasn't necessary, but the short answer is because it is necessary, the legislature has put us in a position where we have to file a lawsuit to get any action done on this. That's unforgivable. The fact that you even mentioned water as a major issue is unconscionable in a state like Iowa. It should not be a major issue. We should expect clean water and clean air, and it shouldn't be divisive. Again, it should be part of the values debate in this state, where we talk about how not only is it important to have clean water on the table, it's essential, and we've got to get past the idea of it's an urban versus rural thing. We have some great partners out there in rural Iowa that we would be willing to work with to actually get some things done on this. When we say it's urban versus rural, it's not accurate. It's urban and rural versus corporate farm interests. I come from a family with a Century Farm in southeast Iowa. Century farmers get this. Century farmers want to be able to pass along topsoil to the next generation of farmers. They want to be able to pass along clean air and clean water to live in a state where they enjoy recreational opportunities, hunting and fishing. My wife is the statewide coordinator for trails for the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. We call ourselves the trails capital of the world here in Iowa. And a real problem with that economic opportunity of recreational conservationism is that what you mentioned earlier. When you get to the end of the trail and the beach is closed, try to market that program. And the thing is, we still can survive this. Our image hasn't been ruined outside of Iowa. People generally don't associate us with bad water and bad air yet. But we've got to deal with it because that is an economic opportunity. Get people here to enjoy our natural resources. Get people to enjoy our parks. We've got great opportunities for economic advancement through recreational tourism that are out there. But they won't last long if we become the new Flint, Michigan, as people start discovering the nitrate levels in our water, the E. coli levels in our water. So yes, unfortunately, I have to support the lawsuit because our legislature hasn't dealt with this issue the way they should.
Just a kind of a quick follow-up. You know, there's this whole controversy between mandatory compliance and voluntary compliance. And certainly our governor and Secretary of Ag, Bill Northey, Director of the Iowa DNR, Chuck Gibb, you know, they all say, oh, you know, mandatory compliance, that's too burdensome. We can't do that to farmers. And yet we have farmers out there, we have a handful of farmers that are doing it right. So can you just kind of speak to the issue of voluntary versus mandatory compliance and what your position is?
Really quickly, how would you feel about voluntary compliance on minimum wage? Because that's what we have, right? That's the exact point here. We've got a real problem, and we are hurting the good actors by making them live by voluntary compliance and doing the right thing while the other ones are cutting the corners and getting ahead financially. And we're pushing them out of the agriculture business because they can't keep competing with that model.
That's right.
So no, voluntary compliance is not working.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and ask this, but your position is getting clearer and clearer. So who pays for the cleanup? Ratepayers or polluters?
Well, right now everybody's paying a high price, but yes, the polluters should pay to clean up their messes.
Thank you very much. Next topic will be money in politics. Jan Korneman.
Well, this is the second presidential cycle since the Citizens United case in 2010, that wonderful case that said corporations are people and money is speech. So that decision is, as we know, allowed corporations and unions to spend unlimited amounts in campaigns. And I guess that just when we were figuring out what that meant, then there was the McCloskey decision, another 5-4 decision that said not only can corporations and unions spend whatever they want, but individuals can spend whatever they want. So you kind of get a double whammy. If you have a corporation, you're the CEO,
Like the Koch
you
brothers.
really make hay.
Yeah.
Just to give you one of the figures, the pro-Bush super PAC Right to Rise opened the year with the biggest cash reserves in the Republican field, $59 million, and they spent $10 million on ads just in one state, just in South Carolina. So it's a big issue. So our first question is, what would you do to change that? And specifically, would you support a constitutional amendment to revoke corporate personhood and make it clear that corporations are not people and money is not speech? And we want to make sure that you're aware, hopefully you already are aware, that we've had resolutions passed in the city of Des Moines, the city of Windsor Heights, and the city of Altoona. And basically those resolutions say, let's get the Constitution changed. You know, they'll go to Congress ultimately and let's get the Constitution changed. What we need, of course, is the state legislature to pass a resolution. So the first question is, would you support such a constitutional change and a resolution to get that done? The other thing is at the state level, House File 27, voice legislation, voter-owned Iowa Clean Elections legislation that Bruce Hunter is working on. It's something that CECI has supported for a long time. And basically it would provide public funding for candidates who agreed not to take PAC money and agreed to limit their contributions to $100. And I guess when we talk about personal issues on this, we want to talk about the issues. You know, we don't want to talk about, you know, how much money can we give you. I think you probably feel the same. You'd probably like to talk about issues rather than spend all day on the phone asking for campaign contributions. So the two questions, changing the Constitution and would you support voice?
Well, I'll start with, you're very right on the point of awkward conversations as I'm campaigning. I had one organization talk about endorsing me when they talked about how they couldn't give me money, and my first reaction was, your endorsement means more than your money. Your endorsement is saying you're supporting me. We raise money, we'll find ways to raise money, but the fact that that's part of the conversation, that I feel like I can't really support you without writing you a check at the same time, is a gross distortion of what our political process should be about. Yes, absolutely, I oppose Citizens United, and I think we do need to amend the Constitution to eliminate this inexcusable wedding of money and speech, and this artificial barrier that's been broken down between your speech and a corporation's ability to speak. That doesn't make any sense, and it shouldn't make any sense anyway. There are people that are behind any corporation, and those people should be the voices speaking for themselves. So we do have to deal with those issues, and I'm happy to work with Representative Hunter on voice legislation. The thing that I think is the scariest about our Iowa campaign finance system is the uncapped contribution.
Right.
You want to talk about an opportunity where we've got a welcome mat out there for the Koch brothers to just decide they're tired of Republicans not controlling the Iowa Senate. Let's dump $80,000 into a whole bunch of Senate districts and let's fix it. Would be very easy for them to do under our current system. And unfortunately, a lot of people won't realize the danger of that until it does happen and it's too late. So we've got to, again, be proactive and start picking off some of these huge faults in our political system that allow the abuse of money in politics here.
Yeah, just kind of follow up on that. You know, this fall in District 16 in my neighborhood, we had a local city council election, and a large industry, the National Association of Realtors, came in and dumped $56,000 into a local campaign for that city council seat. And so on top of that $56,000, that candidate had already raised about another $30,000. So that was an $80,000 campaign for a local seat. And so, you know, it's easy to run over the voices of everyday folks, and it's easy for the neighborhood voice to become just wiped out and invisible. And so, you know, my concern is, how does an everyday person ever decide to get into an election to run if we allow this? And, you know, would you be willing to stand up and actually approach people who are taking that PAC money and say, you know, we don't want this to happen. This is really an overextension of self-interest by an industry that should not have that large a voice in our neighborhoods.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. It's very troubling to see, particularly in that situation when a large investment came in very late in the cycle. But that's the reality of the system that we live in. So we've got to do things to, number one, as we're recruiting candidates to run across the state, make sure they understand the disadvantage that they are put in by this system. So when they do get elected, they're inspired to make a change in it as well.
There we go.
But secondly, it goes back to the very kind of core fundamental thing of finding ways to cap these expenditures, to limit and level the playing field as people go across the board. If any one entity is dumping in, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, they're greatly tilting the election, and especially when we're talking about a local race, city council, boards of supervisors. That money could be doing such great things to clean up our water, right? And again, we go back, kind of circles back to the polluters issue. You don't have money to clean up the pollution that you cause, but you certainly have money to dump in to the political process to make sure you can keep polluting. And that's got to be the point we have to put on it as we send the message out there is, where's the money coming from? Fight it as it's coming in, and then make sure that our candidates survive that cycle so they can implement change when they get there.
Thank you. Okay, next topic will be Ross Gruters and the Bakken pipeline.
Hi Nate, my name is Ross Critters. I live in your district. I'm going to steer it a little different direction from the Bakken pipeline and talk more about you've used the word progressive several times, a progressive vision for what we can do in our future. I'm a union locomotive engineer with the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. Was elected by our division as the legislative rep. And I can see that things are changing with our climate. We all can. And it seems to be, as a father, a pretty pressing issue. Like, I want to leave this world someplace that is a good world for my daughter. So I'm able to set aside some economic self-interest to make this happen. And as such, I've opposed the Bakken pipeline. It's a very tough issue. Labor is divided on it. But to me, it's more about lifting up a different vision for what we can have in labor. And we know that an economic transition is going to need to occur for industrialized workers. We're all going to be affected by it. Just about everybody's income is tied to the fossil fuel industry. So what will you do to help make Iowa a leader in renewable energy and transition toward that future? How will you work with CCI to make that happen?
It's a great question, and it's an embarrassing one for our state and nation that we are still wedded to fossil fuels. The new millennium has come and gone. The decade after the new millennium has come and gone, and here we are talking about oil and coal fueling our nation's energy system. Absolutely, we have got to really invest in renewable resources that can fuel our electricity, fuel our cars, and fuel our economy going into the future. And it is a great opportunity for the labor movement. It is an opportunity to organize in new fields as the economy changes to match the needs of our energy resources. So absolutely, I think I can be a great resource in working with a lot of friends in the labor community. I've been fortunate enough to be endorsed by a dozen separate labor organizations in this race already. And I've had several conversations on this topic with them, and you're right. It is an issue where they're divided and conflicted, but they understand it. Even the ones that are the most vocal saying that we need the pipeline, they also get that we're talking about a very limited future with that pipeline. And it's a tough issue, and it does affect people in their pocketbooks. For the point is, we got to get past fossil fuels, and we're going to run out of them. So if we don't figure out a plan going forward, we're going to be in real trouble. So I think we have to start working with some of our friends, again, in rural Iowa, to engage them in a real comprehensive renewable resource and fuel debate in this state and in this country, because the idea that we're still on oil and coal is inexcusable at this day and age. When we thought we were going to be driving hover cars, who would have thought you were going to put coal or oil into a hover car? But we're still there. We're still there. So we've got to invest in the technologies, and we've got to support new avenues of resource development there.
So I guess with that in mind, do you think we should go forward with the Bakken pipeline in the state?
Short answer is I don't like the Bakken pipeline. And if I were to vote on it right now, I'd vote no. But I also want to know what's the alternative for getting oil across our state. And part of what you know, when you're talking about railroad transportations, again, great opportunity right here in front of us to improve our antiquated railroad system. We had a great opportunity for high-speed rail that Terry Branstad said, no thanks, we don't want that. Think about what that could do to our economy in terms of tourism in the Midwest, to have high-speed rail connecting our cities, and to make transportation of resources a lot safer as we go along, and the jobs that would be created improving our rail infrastructure. I mean, that's what I want to see to be part of it. If we're going to succeed in killing the Bakken pipeline, the next part of it is we got to realize that we still haven't gotten across the finish line on renewable resources, and we got to transport the oil somehow. And it's got to be, in my mind, with safe rail transportation.
I think I was only supposed to have two, but I'm going to ask a third anyway. I think I like what I'm hearing so far. Can we get a future commitment to work with CCI on these issues we're talking about here today?
Yes, and that brings up into one other key point is, I'd like to have you see your membership grow in the district, and I'd like to work with you to do that, because we have, particularly on the east side of Des Moines, we've seen a very disturbing pattern of low voter turnout, low participation in our civic process, and we've got to change that. And you guys do a great job of giving a voice to people who need that voice to be heard. And on the east side of Des Moines, we got a lot of voices that need to be heard. So not only will I work with you to make sure we've got a good plan going forward, but I'll also work with you to make sure we're finding new members to get involved in your organization.
Thank you. Last topic area will be racial justice.
Hi, my name is Lori Jones, and I'm a CCI Action member. I'm not in your district, but I know a lot of people that live on the east side. In October, the list of the worst cities for Black Americans was published in the Des Moines Register. I don't know if you saw that or not. Not a positive tool for recruiting diverse individuals to Des Moines and making it look as if Iowa is a bad home for African Americans and other people of color. Illinois was number 1, and Des Moines rounded out the top 10 list at number 9. Not a list you want to be high on. I'm sure you've seen stories in the news about African American people and other people of color who have been killed at the hands of the people who are supposed to protect us, and that is at the police department. At CCI Action, we've gotten phone calls, and we've had people come in, they give us their stories about how they were profiled, how they were not treated right by the police department. Currently, Iowa is one of 20 states in the country with no laws regarding racial profiling. My first question to you is, do you support legislation to make racial profiling illegal in the state of Iowa? And what else could you do or would you do to make sure all people of color are treated fairly by the police?
Thanks for that question. First of all, yeah, racial profiling is inexcusable and is a holdover, frankly, from antiquated law enforcement tactics that should be gone immediately. Second, I've been working with the police union for years, and I think I can be a great partner in helping solve some of those problems and beginning some very real, direct, honest conversations that need to be happening between our minority communities and our police officers. That needs to happen sooner rather than later, so people understand each other better than talking past each other with complaints and lawsuits that are frankly too late for people that needed the help before bad things started to happen. The other part of that I think is a real opportunity. I see a disturbing trend on social media that has developed, and it's a lot of blaming people of color, blaming people who are immigrants for problems over and over and over again. And Donald Trump made it okay for people to come out of hiding and say things publicly that they weren't willing to say 2 years ago. Yeah. And that's got to change as well.
That would be a reference to
it's disturbing. People are out there really
Muslims.
engaging in very racist and xenophobic behaviors, and we're seeing a very ugly side of the political process develop on the Republican primary side in the particular.
And it's getting worse.
And it's getting worse.
It's getting worse, a lot worse. I mean, the racism and the discrimination that is going on in this country today is terrible. I mean, but everybody's sitting back as if, hey, ain't nothing happened.
That's exactly right. And people pretend in terms of racism in our business cultures that doesn't
not sure if
happen
you're able to
here
hear that.
Here in Iowa, that doesn't happen.
You got the Klan, you got rednecks, you got bigots right here just like anywhere else.
Well, more importantly, you've got people that are in executive positions.
Across the street over here, you got so many bigots over there.
I've seen it. I've taken the civil rights cases. I'm a guy who stood there beside victims of harassment and discrimination that would make your head spin of what kind of things people are actually going through. I've read emails.
That voice, they'll still tell you, but we like you people.
Yeah. Well, so here's an email that I read as part of my day job. N-word, get this done for me. sent on a company email to an employee,
Oh my God.
Oh,
right here in the Des Moines area,
that's whacked.
and a major employer.
Wow.
It still happens. And what we know is you're much more willing to say things than you are to write them, right?
Yeah.
So imagine what the daily life of that employee was in that culture. We're not past it. We're ignoring it. And so, yes, it has to do with policing in the 21st century, but also it has to do with starting to really address some of the root causes of racism that are starting to really percolate and become much more prevalent. And for some reason, Donald Trump and his cronies have made it okay to be a racist and immigrant basher again. That's got to stop. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's part of taking back.
Your tech crew, he's just right along in there with Steve King. There are a lot of folks.
Our congressional
That's right.
representative Steve King is referring to.
Yes. He's tapping into a part of Iowa that is very ugly, and we've got to reclaim, again, the values debate in this state. And as progressives, we need to start taking action on our values again. And we need to push aside the racism. We need to push aside the economic injustices and social injustices that are becoming much more regular parts of our economy and society. We need to eliminate the wage gap. We need to eliminate these tiers of citizenry that we've created. And it's time to get past them.
Do you have any suggestions on what you think could work to make it better?
Sure, public dialogue. Not private, not behind a computer screen, public dialogue. Bringing people together to realize that this isn't something that happens in other cities, in other places, but bringing it to the forefront of our elected officials at town hall forums, bringing it out in public and putting some sunshine on the fact that it's a real problem right here in Iowa and right here in Des Moines, and making it clear that there is a face to this problem. It's not a theoretical problem. It's not something that we're just talking about because it's happening elsewhere. It's a problem we have to address in our community now.
But they don't win their races. That's the whole problem.
Okay, I told you Miss Sharon's down here with this paddle and she's going to use it. Thank you, Miss Sharon. Hey, Nate, if you'd like to give you a minute just to do some closing remarks. You've kind of done a few, but if you've got some more, we'd like to go ahead and give you an opportunity just to close it out.
So here's what it comes down to. We've talked about some really important issues here, and there are a lot more that I'd love to talk to you on an individual basis about. Would love to set up meetings with any one of you. Jordan, my campaign manager's back there. She's got some information as well. But let's continue this conversation, because a seat like this, Senate District 16, is absolutely the seat of action. This is a seat where, again, we reshape the debate. This is a seat where we're going to be able to build real progressive values again in this state. Taking back the education debate, taking back social and economic justice issues, taking back workers' rights. It's time we stop pretending like we don't have a stake in a values debate in this state. This is a seat that can lead on those things. Voting the right way is great, but leading on these issues help make sure it expands past Senate District 16 and into the greater community of Iowa. We need that help, and I want you to be part of that movement, so join me with it. Please find ways to get involved in my campaign, learn about the things that I have done and that I want to do for Senate District 16. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Adam, are you
Yes,
going to
I'm
close?
here.
You're going to be the closer of the closer.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you, Nate. Yes, thank you so much. All right. Okay. Everybody hear me? I don't like microphones, so I just talk loud. Is that okay? All right. So we've had a pretty full day. It's gone pretty good, yeah? So I know Shereen was going to ask folks how the lobbying went, and we had a nice little run-in with our governor. Aside from that, we did get a chance to meet with the governor's chief of staff, which is, again, better than I expected. I thought we'd probably just be talking to Leo, that front desk guy. So meeting with the chief of staff was good. You know,
The
mentored him a number of issues. We're gonna follow up with him to get specific, meetings set up for probably one of our citizen lobby team meetings. By the way, who's on the citizen lobby team? Real quick, raise your hand. Brenda, Larry, Vern, Sherry, Barb.
We want more
Oh,
people.
Barb.
We want more.
Yep, so every Wednesday, Rashawn, gotcha. Every Wednesday, what time, Jess?
10 to 2.
10 to 2, we come up here to the Capitol, and because every week there's something going on, and, you know, one week it might be more important for us to be talking about, getting a ban-the-box bill out of, the Judiciary Committee, right? That's happening later this afternoon. Another week we might be lobbying legislators about Governor Branstad's proposal, again, to take $4.7 billion away from education infrastructure and move it to corporate ag handouts. So we don't like that. So we'll shift it up. We gotta tear down any issue silos and show that we have people power all over the state, and we have a broad progressive agenda. So that's going on. I heard a little bit, I got a list here of folks that we talked to today about some of our people in Planet First issues. I heard Dick Dearden, I heard Tony Bisignano, Senator Sodders, Mary Jo Wilhelm, Rob Hogue, and Janet Peterson in the Senate. Now, did I miss anybody from the Senate?
Bowman.
Todd Bowman, very good.
Brad Zahn.
Brad Zahn, very good. Anybody else you folks talked to on the Senate side?
Jacob Chapman.
Chapman, very good. Okay, and how did those well, I'll get to that in a second. On the House side, when I was kind of going around tracking folks, I heard Bruce Hunter, Jerry Kearns, Barry Gaskill from down in southeast Iowa, Chuck Eisenhart from Dubuque, Terry Brown Powers from Waterloo, Cedar Falls area, Dan Kelly, of course. I had a conversation, I didn't have a chance to grab any members with Dawn Pettingill.
Oh, lucky you.
That's right.
How'd that go?
Well, she wants to work together on financial literacy.
Huh.
Okay.
Okay.
In other words, she likes money.
Who else in the House did we talk to, folks? Who?
Wilhelm.
Wilhelm? Very good.
Stutzman.
Who?
Sally Stutzman.
Sally Stutzman, very good.
I spoke with with Helen Miller.
Helen Miller, very good.
Akeo Abdul Samad.
And, Debbie, Berry.
Deb Berry, sure. Very good. Anybody else folks talk to?
Mr. Hunter, did you get him?
Bruce Hunter, got him. Very good. Okay, so in the agenda packet that we
Some
gave
said
you-
Janet Peterson.
Janet Peterson in the Senate, yep. I didn't have her. That's good. So in the agenda packet that you had this morning, there's an evaluation form. If you wouldn't mind just kind of like real quick writing down a note or two of how those conversations went and what you thought about today, that helps us make sure that these lobby days are as effective as possible. Now, the other thing that we did obviously was this candidate form. What do folks think about that? You know, as Barb said this morning and as Cherie said this afternoon, we have to do more of these because we want more candidates who share our vision and our values, and they're not going to just get that unless we're the ones that are educating. And ultimately, if we want to get to the promised land, here I go, I don't quote scripture that often. So that's all I'm saying. If we want to get to the promised land, we know that we have to be our own saviors in this public policy realm. That means we need more of our members running for office and running campaigns. Now, when I say that, I mean we have to be the ones that are running for city council, that are running for county supervisor,
You
that are
could
running
also
for state
include
house.
the
But that's not the only way
school
we can do
boards.
it. We can also help run campaigns, okay? So we need to train ourselves on how we are embedding ourselves within campaigns so that we're campaign managers, we're field managers. And ultimately, as we start running more CCI members for office, we've got the skills we need to put the people power behind them to get them elected, right? Okay, so we're gonna be looking for more opportunities like that throughout the spring, throughout the summer months. The candidate filing deadline for this year is coming up, it's March 18th. And so the electoral picture's gonna become a lot clearer, and we're gonna be looking for places where we have lots of CCI members, where we've got a base, where we can have a big impact, meaning by knocking on doors and making phone calls, unless you all think we should start writing checks. No? Okay, so we're gonna have to go do it the old-fashioned way, knocking on doors, making phone calls, turning out people to vote, building our base of folks who are gonna be with us building the movement to take action, because getting people elected is just the first step, okay? Being here today, that's the second step. Holding them accountable, that's the day in, day out work that it takes to make the changes we want to see happen. So thank you all for being here, being part of that. Stay tuned, because we're going to be digging in. Where around the state do we want to build our base? Do we have a big base? And can we have a big impact this fall to make some changes so that we change the way the state house is run, so that we change business as usual politics? Woo! We have one other opportunity to do that coming up real quick. And Hugh Eske's going to tell us about that.
Hey, Hugh!
So, how many remember what happened on February 1st in the evening?
There were caucuses. Was there anybody here that went to their precinct caucus? Oh, very good. So, I went to my precinct caucus to challenge the political establishment and to work to change business as usual politics. Okay, so there were precinct caucuses. Now there's another step coming up on March 12th, which is 3 weeks from this Saturday. And those are county conventions, okay?
Party conventions.
And
Both
as
the
Adam said, we
Democratic
want to
and
continue to
Republican
build a bigger and bigger base of active justice fighters, okay? Does that make sense? Build a bigger base. We want more people engaged, more people knowing about what we do, and we want more people engaged in pushing for big change, challenging the political establishment, and changing business as usual politics. And we know that no candidate, single candidate or set of candidates, is going to create that big change. It starts and stops with us, people, demos. Starts and stops with us. We got to continue to build a political revolution, a mass-based, people-based, people power movement to create big change in our communities, at the state capitol, and in DC. How many people are going as delegates? And we need your help at the county conventions. Very good. Because I'm going to ask you to do something. We're going to ask you to do. How many people are going as delegates to their county convention?
That's awesome.
Okay, by the way, do we have a device?
We do.
Like something.
I'm taking names.
So I'm gonna, we got two.
Keep your hands up.
And for people, oh yeah, keep your hands up, please.
Until I say it. So I got Maddie, Nick, Vern, Larry, Barb Colbaugh.
Mike?
And then we have Rashawn.
Rashawn?
Next to Derek. What's next to Derek? Katie. John Blassengame. Ross, is that you back there?
You got Mike?
Ross?
Katie, what's your last name?
You got BB?
Yep.
So,
Sherry Hawk. Alternates are important too.
oh yeah, you're going as an alternate.
Very important.
Oh, is that Patrick Stoll's sister?
Got it.
Okay, Melanie, you're going as an alternate? Oh yeah, alternates are important too. So if you're going as an alternate.
Very important.
Because if the main delegate is unable
All
to
right,
participate,
we're
then
gonna
the
explain.
alternate
And
would
just
take
because you're
over.
going as a delegate or as an alternate doesn't, like, well, I'm off the hook, and I'm not a delegate, I'm not an alternate. That's not exactly. So what we're asking the people that are going as delegates and alternates is help us find more justice fighters at your county convention. And you might be like, oh, how the heck do we do that? Well, we're going to have a simple device like a petition or something that, and it's a quick thing. So we want to, at the county conventions, find more people who talk, think, and act like us. That want to challenge the political establishment, that want to change business as usual politics, that want to think about being big and bold to create big change here in our state, here in our communities, here across the country. So we'll have a simple a petition, and then I don't know what it will say, something like, yes, I want to challenge, I want to change business as usual politics, to stand up for what's right with thousands of other Iowans across the, and we want to capture those people's, not those people, but their names and contact information, because then we want to get back to them after the county convention and talk to them about the work that we do, the issues that we're working on, the issues that are important to them, and then what we can do together as a united front to tackle these issues, make our communities more just, more small d democratic, to fight for economic justice, racial justice, and environmental justice, and build a bigger movement, knowing that no single candidate is gonna create this big change. It's up to us. Candidates are important, most definitely. Nate's important, Pam's important, all that, but they're not gonna get nothing done without a mass-based movement that's providing accountability and direction. That's where we come in. That's where big change comes from. It's us, right? Starts and stops with us. Sometimes in our culture, we have a tendency, God bless candidates, we have a tendency to put candidates on a pedestal. We put them up there and we come down here. That's kind of flipped around. We are more important. We create the mass-based movement. Candidates are very important. We are just as important, and we have to keep fighting for justice and democracy in our communities. We can't just say, well, I went to the caucus, I did my job. I went to the county convention, I did my job. I went and voted, I did my job. Our job is 365. 366 this year, right?
Yep.
366. Well, you get one day off. 365. 24/7. We got to do that. We got to be part of an organization that has a power and clout and a vision. So, of the people that are going as county delegates and alternates, would you be willing to help us capture contact information from people that go to your county conventions? And it's gonna be like a simple petition or something that says, hey, yes, I want to change business as usual politics. I want to work with CCI Action and other folks to change business as usual and make our communities more just, more democratic. Are you willing to help us at your county conventions to get the contact information from other people at your county convention who think, talk, and act like us?
Hell yes.
That's where you say yes.
Well, one said, hell yes.
And then to put you on the spot, is there anyone that's going as a delegate or as an alternate that doesn't want to do that doesn't want to help us build the movement? Okay, very good. Now, the other thing I want to ask is people will think, well, I'm not going as a delegate. Hold on a second, Bert. I'm not going as a delegate. I'm not going as an alternate, so I'm off the hook. I can sleep in that day. We're asking you, though, who's willing to help us in your county petition outside the county convention? So as people are going in, asking them right then, petitions that, are you willing to be part of a movement? Can you be part of a movement that changes business as usual politics? If so, we want to capture your contact information. We want to get your contact information. We want to get back to you because the work continues after today. Is there anybody that would be willing to help petition outside?
Yeah, would that require me to,
Okay, keep your hands up, and we will get back in touch with you, and just like we're going to get back in touch with the delegates and the alternates, we'll get back in touch with you with a petition device. We call it a device. It's a piece of paper or whatever that says, how does this sound? And then kind of walk through with you. It's like, so how would you approach someone at your county convention? Because don't they kind of like meet from 9 to 5 and there's no time? No, I mean, you're going to be there and you figure out how to, spot other people that think, act, talk like us, and get their information so that we can follow up with them. Does that make sense? We want to find more people like us at these county conventions and engage them, take steps to engage them in our work so we build our base, build our power so that we are in a better position to create big change. Does that make sense?
So I got Lori Young, I got Sheree Mortiz.
Joe Fagan. So if you're not a delegate or an alternate, are you willing to help canvass outside for like an hour or so? It's on Saturday, March 12th.
That's right.
It'd be in the morning. Is there someone?
We got 4 hands. Can we get 2 more?
I'll help.
Is that Alexa? Is that your little Alexa? Alexa said she would.
Alexa's in.
And it's okay. So you might assume that there are like 99 county conventions. So we might have like 6 people in Polk County that says I'll canvass. That's fine. That's fine. We got a team out there because we're always a team. Anybody else?
I need 1 more.
Not a delegate. Maria?
Maria.
All right. Very good. Yeah. And we'll have something simple. It'll be like, yes, I want to change business as usual politics. I want to be part of a movement to create big change so that around economic, racial, environmental justice, something like that people get it, that we want to change stuff, make our communities more just, more democratic. Everything clear? We will be in touch with you. And do we have, of the delegates and the alternates, we've got names, we got contact information, so how we're going to get back to you?
Yeah, we should have
We do, because everybody signed in this morning, right?
Did everybody sign in today?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Very good. Okay, so we're almost done, folks. I know it's been a long day, but Larry Ginter's actually going to close us out. So a reminder, folks, Citizen Lobby Team is going to be up here every Wednesday.
But not tomorrow.
But not tomorrow, because we're here today. Stay tuned, because this has been funnel week, and so Monday morning you'll be getting an email from us, kind of letting you know where the chips fall, where the dust settles after the first funnel, and how we're focusing our work over the next month then, before that second funnel comes up, okay? So be looking for that email. There'll be action alerts in there too about how you can email your legislators on those key issues. Spread that around, spread that far and wide to your friends, your neighbors, as many folks as possible, so that we're getting as much support around these bills as possible, okay? Larry.
Yeah, Larry.
Well, let's have a little conversation for a minute here. You know, I really like you guys. Today, I've seen your minds at work, your vision, your imaginations, and your storytelling, and your fire in that governor's office was really impressive. And that's who we are as a movement. As he was saying, we are a movement. We're trying to climb that ladder of power. And we have come up with some great ideas. We got some great bills going out there. And I got to thinking, why do corporations think that they're entitled to a cheap labor pool? Why do the rich think that they can hire people and not pay a fair wage? Why do businesses think they're entitled not to pay fair taxes?
Because we let them.
That's right.
They get away with it.
But however, it's that attitude. They keep talking about Social Security or Medicare as an entitlement. Hell, we all work damn hard for that.
That's right.
I heard some shameful stuff at my at the
Caucus?
No, I can't come up with it now.
Your caucus?
Platform committee.
Oh.
Somebody said, when we was talking about free college, they said they gotta have skin in the game. So I had to let it go. That's surprising.
Give him the
I said, skin in the game. I said, when somebody's working for a low-wage job, they've already got skin in the game.
That's right.
When somebody, an elderly person, is trying to decide whether they're going to pay for their medicine or whether they're going to pay for their rent or whether they're going to buy a meal or get groceries, that's skin in the game.
That's right.
That's right.
So I'm getting a little sick and tired. I was another fellow there, he was talking from white privilege. He was talking about, there's another fellow in there that I think I can get beyond our members, okay? He said, I said, let's start thinking big. I said, we're supposed to be better than the Republicans. Start thinking, let's have a broad vision. And he said, well, we just can't unite America to do like the Norwegians. And I didn't say anything to him. I just kind of felt sorry for him because I thought about you people. How we come together, we go to MPA, and we black, brown, white, Native Americans, Asians. We come together and we march together and we fight. This guy probably has never had any fight in him at all. Sorry. But one of the things, an author was on Bill Moyers here a while back, here 2 or 3 years ago. And he said there's two great forces at odds with each other, fighting tooth and nail against each other. And that was kindness, and that was cruelty. This organization represents kindness.
That's right.
You know, we talk, we act, we get it done. And above that should be kindness. Because that's who we are. We're compassionate people, we care about one another, we have each other's backs. And I just love coming down here. I was really fired up today. I mean, this last 15, 20, 30 minutes and hearing that Nate Bolton talk. I was gonna ask him why isn't he start running for governor? This guy is really, really sharp. He's got it. He and I just looked at each other and said, this guy's got it. He's sharp. Well, anyway, I'll shut my mouth. I'm gonna ask you who we are. Who are we?
CCI!
Who are we?
CCI!
Who are we?
CCI!
One more. What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
All right.
All right, everybody get home safe. Take our message of power, hope, and kindness home with you and spread it out in your community.
Well, that'll do it for today. Tomorrow I will go broadcast a discussion on the Middle East. That will be at 7 o'clock p.m. Central. So at 8 o'clock Eastern. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the streams.